Hi knitters, welcome to episode 72 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I am Devin Ventry, www.knittymcpurly.com on the internet, Knitty McPurly on Instagram, and I am Devin at knittymcpurly.com if you would like to send me an email. How have you guys been? I've been in kind of a funk this past week. I'm not sure why. Probably a combination of things. The state of the world and rising gas prices. I'm feeling the pressure of the inflation and the gas prices. Is anybody else feeling that pressure? Like, I grocery shop every week and my weekly grocery trip is $100 more than it normally is every week. And that is just like, gosh, I'm every night I have dreams about having bills I can't pay. Do you guys have dreams like that? So I think there's just the worry about that, but it's just, I don't know. These are the times that try men's souls. I won't talk too much about that though, because this is our happy place. And I want us to be joyful here in the knitosphere. I had a revelation this week that I probably should have had a long time ago, and that is that I do not have time to write a book. I always want to do the book project, always. This is not the first time I've tried to do a book project. I've tried it many times. But the truth is that that is a huge project, and I just don't have time for that right now in my life. So every time somebody says, oh, you should write a book, I think, yes, I want to write a book. And then I'm like, I can't write a book. So I'm not going to be writing the book about the knitting words at this point in my life. It is on the shelf for some later date, and it will happen, I am sure. I have other books in my mind that I want to write. I built these empires in my mind where it's like I'm this best-selling author, but maybe someday, not right now. So I actually made this little list of things that I am focusing on instead of the book, and it's actually kind of a large list. Just in terms of the business, not even in terms of like my regular life and having a clean house and homeschooled kids who know things. In addition to that, but there's the podcast. Like, this is so awesome. I love the podcast so much. I feel like I interact with you guys, and I love when you send me videos of stories to put at the end of the podcast, because I feel like I see your face and I get to know who you are. We have a great story for you this week. I have two great stories, one great story this week and one for next week. I'm very pumped about those stories. If you have a knitting story that you would like to share, please email it to me, devin@knittymcpurly.com. I would love it if you could take a video, because then I can see your face and I feel like we're buddies. So podcast, yarn kits. I'm always working on new yarn kits. Right now, there is no yarn in the shop. And that is because I am having a big sale tomorrow, Saturday. Every skein of yarn is going to be 25% off. And there's a bunch of stuff that was not listed before that I had that I wanted to clear out to make room for the summer stuff. So spring and summer. So that sale starts tomorrow, Saturday at noon Eastern time. If you are a newsletter subscriber, you already know about it. You can put it on your calendar and log into the website tomorrow at noon for that sale. But what kits do you want to see coming up? Because we're coming into warmer weather. There's always that kind of perennial problem of, what do I knit in the summer? Do I want to knit the tank tops and the swim cover-ups? Or do I want to work on sweaters for the fall? I tend to be in the sweater camp, but it's always nice to have socks going on too. Sweaters and socks are kind of my favorite things to knit. I do a lot of shawls too, but anyway, I'll get into that in a bit. But what kind of yarn kits do you want to see coming up in the next few months in the shop? Leave me a comment and I will take those to heart. I'm also working on patterns and my necklaces, note cards, stickers, hand balm, and lip balm. Those are probably going to be as they are. I'm not going to be creating big lines of these things. As of right now, I think what I have is what there's going to be. I do have a new scent for summer coming up in the hand balm and the lip balm. So that's exciting. But other than that, it's mainly going to be that. Like, again, I'm building empires where I have this idea in my mind about all these little cute animals I could draw, when the truth is that I need to just stay in my lane a little bit and do what I can do. Even right now, there's 40,000 things going through my head, and I'm trying to boil them down and put them in a lane so that they are relatable and understandable. So, the retreat is coming up. I've been working behind the scenes a little bit on that. That is going to ramp up more as the weather warms up, and McPurly pouches. So those are all the things that I've been trying to focus on. And it's a good bit of stuff. It's a lot of great stuff that I really love. They're all very doable things. I just need to stop going off on these large tangents. Small tangents I can do, but large tangents are just, my brain is like all the time. So anyway, if you ever hear me say, I think I'm going to write a book, am I crooked? Say, Devin, you can't write a book. Just don't. It's not the time. When my kids are older, I will write the book. I'll write all the books when my kids are older. So last week we talked about darning, and I darned a sock for you, Bob Ross style. I'm going to do some more knitting Bob Ross style today, which is going to be really fun, I hope. It's like not really planned. It's very impromptu. I'm not going to edit out the mistakes. I mean, I might edit it just to cut the time, so it's not just, too boring, but this is like, I'm doing this for the first time, or I'm showing this for the first time. It'll be very impromptu. But a lot of you said to me, and my brain exploded because I never even thought of this. A lot of you said to me, you can just rip out the toe and knit a new toe. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Didn't even think of it. I think usually I tend to get holes in my socks on the balls of the feet, which would obviously, you're not gonna rip all that back, especially if you have a pattern going in the foot of the sock. So I would definitely patch those. But in the future, if I get a hole in the heel or the toe, I'm just gonna rip that sucker out and redo the whole thing. Why not? Then you get a whole new fresh toe. That said, I loved the tiny, it was like a little pillow on my foot, that little patch that I did last week. That was so much fun. I loved the way it turned out. I love that it's a contrast color. I just think it is so, so great. I really had a lot of fun doing that. And I really enjoyed reading all of your comments. Some of you are very accomplished sock darners. One lady said, I'll fix them 3 times and then I throw them out. I'm like, okay, that works. I wonder how many times you could darn socks. Is there an infinite number of times? I feel like there's probably an infinite number of times if you're willing to have nothing but patch left in the end. Infinitely. So, okay. I got a little overworked last week, and I kind of took a break a little bit this week for several different reasons, and I think that will roll us into progress and shop news. I am going to start with shop news. I already told you about the sale tomorrow at noon, Saturday at noon. I imagine the skeins will go quickly because 25% off is a bigger sale than I normally do. And you don't need any code for that. You can just, everything will already be marked down. If you want to join my newsletter, I will send one out before the sale so that you can get ready, and it will also have pictures so you can kind of get an idea of what you want. In the listings, it'll tell you how many are available. If you go in and there aren't that many available, it means somebody bought the other ones. I just don't want you to go in and say, I want 8 of them. And then I feel it doesn't let you, and you're like, well, how many do you have? So I put the amount available in the listing. So the sale. The second shop news thing is the advent calendar. I am pumped about this year's advent calendar. I have been planning it for a few months, and I'm about to give you all the details. This is the 2022 Knitty McPurly advent calendar, and it's going to be different from the ones that I've done up until now. we are doing DK weight yarn, 25 10-gram minis, and it is not going to be a shawl. The patterns that accompany the yarn will be winter accessories. And the theme is stripes and brights. I drew this little picture and it's very mediocre. I was just playing around with Procreate. I would love to use like a font. This is just me, doodling. But stripes and brights is the theme, and it's DK weight and it's winter accessories. That's the pattern. So now here's the question. In my mind, I was going to start selling these July, August, because it's kind of hard to envision next Advent. And I had people who ordered last year in August who forgot by November. If you order it now, are you going to, how many other Advent calendars are you going to buy because you forgot that you bought it? But I saw that Nicole of Hue Loco is selling hers now. So I'm not sure. What do you think? Should I put the calendars up now? I have a lot. I did a lot more this year than I did last year because I've never been able to meet demand, and I would love to meet demand. I want everyone who wants one to get one. So I can either put the listing up now or in a month or in July, August. I don't know. Let me know what you think. The price will be the same as the same as my last minute price for last year. It's $125 for 25 10-gram DK skeins, and individually boxed with their dates. I may do a reflection because I know people really liked that in the Lent calendar. Let me know. I would love to hear what you think. Let me know. I'm open to suggestions about that. Oh, shop news. One more thing. I have a giveaway because I mentioned this a couple weeks ago when I didn't have the Murdog cards. Now I have them. Any comment you leave below this video will enter you to win a set of 5 Murdog note cards, a sticker, a hand balm, and a lip balm. So leave any comment. I will choose with a random number generator by next week's podcast, and I will choose a winner for just this very cute, sweet, small, lovely prize. And I will be in touch with you to let you know if you are the winner. With a $50 purchase, and this applies to the sale tomorrow too, you get a free lip balm and a free Murdog knitting sticker. I have one on my car. I finally put it on the car. Which I love. It's the only sticker back there. I live with some very anti-sticker people, and my daughter, who's the one who's driving, is like, Mom, why is there a sticker on the car? And I was like, non-negotiable. I pay the bills, I make the rules. I pay the bills, my Murdogs go where I put them. So if you spend $50 at that sale tomorrow, you get those things for free. If you spend $200, you get free shipping. So, shipping is not that expensive, but if you needed a reason to spend $200, it is yarn on sale. So you might need a sweater quantity of a couple different things. Okay. What else? My notes are a bit scattered, kind of like my brain. My brain and my notes go together. Okay. So here is what happened with my knitting progress. I was working on that sweater that I have been working on, the one that's beige, and I was gonna do the color on the sleeves. So I showed you the colors that I tried, didn't like, ripped it out, re-dyed a new color, tried that. Here's a picture of how it looked before I ripped it out. So I knit this really quickly after we talked last time, like last Saturday, and then I put it down and walked away from it for like 5 days. I just was like, I don't know what's wrong with it. I don't know why I don't like it, but I don't like it. I wasn't sure if it was the color or the pattern or just the fact that it wasn't plain. And so I laid it down and I thought about it. And what I decided is that this sweater, which was originally meant to be a basic, oh, my DPNs have cut into everything here. And here I have taken it in another direction, and it was just wrong. It just wasn't right. So, hold on, I got needles sticking out everywhere. Okay, so I ended up taking it out, and I am just gonna make this a plain beige sweater, which frankly is kind of boring to knit, but I'm gonna wear this thing all the time. That's kind of the trouble with basics, is that they are not super exciting, but you can see the shape of that sleeve. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. It's got a really wide base of the sleeve, and then it gets narrow quickly, and then it will be narrow all through here. I got this shirt on Amazon, by the way. I tend to get questions about what I'm wearing, although usually I'm wearing something that I have made myself. This I did not. I feel like kind of a Christmas tree in this in this top. The good thing is you can absolutely eat whatever you want in it, and it will not show. And I am wearing my Odette stitch marker necklace. Again, I have kept this one because it is broken. It opens, but it doesn't close tightly. The best thing about this necklace is that it has two chains, and one is gold and one is silver toned, which is nice because then you can wear it with whatever. And also this really cool, very blinged out pendant has the gold tone and the silver tone on it too. And that's nice, like if you want to wear gold and silver. So anyway, this is the Odette stitch marker necklace. It also has this really cool bail on the top. I just think that is so cool. I really like the way that looks. This or any other like statement stitch marker necklace would go so well with the sweater. Now, it was last night, and I had just been like, what am I gonna do? I've got the podcast tomorrow. I'm not happy with the sweater and I don't know what to do. And so I ripped it out and I started re-knitting, and I had the joy back for this sweater, even though it's just a plain beige stockinette sweater. Oh, that's my wrap and turns in the back. I'm not that great at wrapping and turning. But the joy was back because it's right. This is the right thing. This is what I wanted. And so now I'm feeling that it is such a basic, and especially in this color, that this would be great as a part of my Audrey Hepburn collection, including the Audrey sweater and the Go Lightly sweater. I knit both of those with the Audrey Hepburn inspiration because she was so classic and so timeless. And I love wardrobe pieces like that are classic and timeless. And you could put it in a drawer and take it out in 50 years and it's still in fashion. So I definitely think that'll be true of this, though if I had to knit it again, I would totally do it in a hot pink or a green or a color. But I don't know, I mean, I've really enjoyed it, and there's something to be said for just a plain stockinette sweater. That really is just delightful. So anyway, it was a roller coaster of emotions over that sweater. I was very displeased with how it looked, and now I'm very happy with it, even though it is a total basic, which was the plan for that sweater from the beginning. So anyway, while I was on a break from knitting that sweater, I worked on these mittens. Now this one was done before. This is the Cotton Candy Mittens, which will be on my website for free. This is a free pattern on my website, and it's worked with bulky weight yarn. One good thing is that if you don't have a full skein of one color, you can kind of do what I did here. Now you can knit these mitts short with only one skein, but if you want the long cuff, you're going to need more than one skein. So if you did just the cuffs in another color, or the cuffs and the top of the fingers in another color, it really makes your yarn go super far. So this is how far I got on the other mitten. I've got the thumb gusset done, but I haven't done the thumb. So this is, you know, it's less than an hour from being finished. I just have to finish up the top of the toe and knit the thumb on and weave in the ends, and they are done. However, I want to say we're coming to the end of mitten season, but here in Virginia, we're supposed to get 1 to 3 inches of snow tomorrow. So today is beautiful, sunshiny, bright, but tomorrow we're supposed to get snow. I'm actually going to a formal event tomorrow, And I bought a dress that's kind of summery. It's indoors, but we'll see. So anyway, I did get some work done on these, which was really, really fun, because this is just such a fun knit. When you knit stuff in bulky weight yarn, especially when it is a free pattern, you can just sit and make these all day long. Like, they knit up so fast, they're so easy, they make great gifts. There's definitely some bulky in the sale tomorrow if you are interested in that. Or just shop your stash. Even if, you could even shop your stash for partial balls of bulky, or even yarn that you could hold together to make a bulky weight yarn. I do that a lot when I'm making a small project like this, because it's really nice to use up those scraps. And it makes a really special pair of mittens that are kind of unrepeatable. So that's what I did this week. I also sat, I want to say I sat still on the couch and pet the dog, which I did a little bit, but mostly I was ill at ease and restless. I just had a very kind of ill at ease, restless week. But that's life. I hope your week was good. I have also thought about doing a pattern, and in my mind, this would be a free pattern too, because it's just a plain pair of DK weight socks, but it would have a really cute, I'm going to say color work design that's super simple, which is why it would be a free pattern, because it's just the simplest pattern ever. It's too simple to ask you to pay for it. But I would sell kits that you could get that yarn and do it in those colors. So I'm thinking like a peach and a turquoise and a black and a white. Those combinations are so popular. I have a picture hanging in my workspace from the HGTV magazine where they use those 4 colors, and I just love the combination. So once I'm done with these things, or maybe all at the same time, I might be working on those too. It's nice to have kind of smaller projects, so that if you get in a bind with one of them, like I did with this tan sweater, that you have something else that you can be creative with and work on. So does anybody have a suggestion for an Audrey Hepburn themed name for this sweater? I don't have one called Hepburn yet. And Katharine Hepburn was a knitter, and she was also very kind of classic and timeless in her ways. So that's an option. But if anybody has another suggestion, I would love to hear it. Leave me a comment and be entered to win the giveaway. Yay! Our word of the week this week is Kitchener. Now, the Kitchener stitch is a stitch that is done when you have 2 sets of live stitches held parallel to each other that you want to sew together in such a way that it leaves no seam. Kitchener leaves what appears to be another row of knitting connecting live stitches. This is a super useful stitch, very useful technique, and I want to talk about the history of it today. So, what is Kitchener? What is that word? What does that mean? Well, that comes from Field Marshal Horatio Herbert Kitchener, the first Earl Kitchener. This guy was born in 1850 in Ireland. He went on to become a high-ranking official in the British Army. He was in the Franco-Prussian War and a bunch of other wars I'd never heard of, including the Second Boer War, B-O-E-R, which I believe was fought in South Africa. I'm not a historian. I don't know the details of this war. This is just what I read. And then later in World War I. So he was the guy on the poster that had his finger out, kind of like Uncle Sam, your country needs you to do your part for the war effort during World War I. So his face was well known during World War I. Around this, he died in 1916 during the war when the HMS Hampshire was sunk by a German mine off of the northern islands of Scotland. Now, why the stitch is named after him is something that we don't really know. Some people say that he invented it. I think that's unlikely. But probably what happened was during this time, they recognized that socks needed to be knit without a seam because the seam was bothering people. And when you're in war, you can't have blisters on your feet from your sock seams. So somebody came up with this way of grafting the stitches together, and that was the way that they used it for socks. Probably around 1880 is about the time that they think that this was developed. But the way that it came into the popular culture was that in 1918, Vogue magazine published a sock pattern with a grafted toe and called it the Kitchener sock, crediting Lord Kitchener for being a war effort champion. Vogue didn't say he designed it. It was just like, this sock is good for soldiers in the war, and ladies at home, when you're making socks, make them like this. And Kitchener was this guy who was like the face of the British Army at that time, kind of like cardigan and raglan and balaclava, kind of like how that all got connected. So I think that makes sense, totally. Now, we've all gone on doing this stitch, calling it the Kitchener stitch for over 100 years now, okay? But turns out that while the Lord Kitchener was a handsome dude who was the face of, the British Army in World War I, and he was all of that, he was kind of a dirtbag. So that brings me to our comic of the week, where I drew a little cute comic of Lord Kitchener. Turns out he was kind of a dirtbag. He's got a little yarn ball on his hat, and it says knitting forever. I had fun making this little picture. I love his mustache. Oh my gosh, best mustache ever. So, and I just used the picture of him from the poster as the reference, and I just drew this quickly. It's just a cute little sketch. But during that Boer War, B-O-E-R, that happened in South Africa, he designed internment camps that were essentially concentration camps for women and children and natives. And he, I think, mercilessly oversaw the killing of a lot of people. And it's said that Hitler built his concentration camps modeled after these ones that Kitchener came up with. So he was kind of a bad guy. And that brings us to 2022. Like, what do we do? Do we cancel Kitchener? Like, can we never call it this anymore? Do we have to come up with a new name? Here's my opinion. You can do whatever you want. My opinion is, this guy was an icon, right? Like all historical icons, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Margaret Thatcher. I mean, whoever these iconic people are, they have an icon self, and then they have the real person self, because everybody is a real person. Everybody has flaws. Now, I think designing concentration camps is a bridge too far. I think that goes beyond like the personal flaws that you and I maybe deal with. But I also think that we can accept that people are human and some people were evil. Now, again, this is a story. I don't even know in terms of the absolute truth of how much did he design of these horrible camps? Like, how much of it was him, or was he just, again, the figurehead there? We don't know. We don't know, because not everything was written down. We don't have every person's thoughts and hearts and minds at our disposal from all of history. I'm going to continue to call it the Kitchener stitch. And maybe in that moment, when I think about the Kitchener stitch, I will think about all of those poor people who died in concentration camps. And maybe I'll offer up a prayer for them in that moment. And that will be a vehicle by which I think of them and pray for them. I think that's one way. I think that's my chosen way of dealing with awkward historical things like that. I think that there are some people, especially in the knitting community, who would want to slash that right down if they knew. I don't know. None of them watch this show. So they may just go on not knowing, calling it the Kitchener stitch, not knowing that that must make them a neo-Nazi. It's too bad. Oh gosh. Okay. Woo. So moving right along those lines, here I'm going to insert my video of my Bob Ross style Kitchener stitch the way that I do it, which is a cheater way because I don't like to look it up. Used to be back in the day when I first started knitting the Kitchener stitch, when I first started grafting with that, I would have to look it up every time and I'd have to watch the video and stop it and do the thing and watch it and stop it and do the thing. And that just got so annoying that I went to a cheater way. And this way is so great. I highly recommend it. If you are a person like me who's fine with things looking pretty good, but if you want total perfection, I recommend that you do the Kitchener stitch in the proper way. Anyway, topic of the week, Kitchener stitch, Bob Ross style. Here we go. Okay, guys, we're going to be talking about the Kitchener stitch, Bob Ross style. So I have these two pieces of stockinette. Whoops. I'm going to put the wrong sides together. Now, you would use this stitch often, as you know, when doing a mitten top or a sock toe, and you basically have your right sides on the outside and your purl sides would be on the inside. Now, this is the way that I do it, which is a little bit of a cheat. I don't do that initial setup stitch, but basically I think of this is the knit side, so I'm going to lead with knit on this side. And here we have the purl side, so I'm going to lead with purl, okay? So I'm going to do in as if to knit, slip, purl. Now here, in as if to purl, slip, knit. Oops. There, I got a little bit of a loose. There we go. Now I'm using a contrast color because you'll be able to see it better. Again, this is all Bob Ross, you guys. So if I make a mistake, you're going to be in on it. Okay, so this is our knit side. So in as if to knit, slip, purl. And then back here, in as if to purl, slip, knit. Okay. Knit side, knit, slip, purl, don't slip, purl side, purl, slip, knit. Okay. All right, we'll have to see. I have to see if I'm doing it right in the end. Knit side, in as if to knit, slip, in as if to purl. Purl side, in as if to purl, slip, knit. Knit, slip, purl, purl, whoop, purl, slip, knit, knit, slip, purl, purl, slip, knit. I hope I have enough. Knit, slip, purl, purl, slip, knit. Knit, slip, purl, purl, slip, knit. Okay, we're getting there. Knit, slip, purl, purl, slip, knit, and then knit, slip, purl. Okay, now what I should have, now my my gray yarn is a little bit It's a little bit loose. Let me just get it tightened up here so you can see it a little bit better. What I should have is what looks like a row of knitting, and I do. Check that out, dudes. That looks awesome. Where's the, okay, just tighten that up a little bit. All right, so that is kind of a quick cheater way to do the Kitchener stitch. So this way, sorry, I bumped the camera. This way, I don't have to look it up every time. I just think when I'm looking at the knit side, lead with knit, and when I'm looking at the purl side, which is the wrong side on the back, lead with purl. All right, there you have it. Our next segment is knitting fantasies. So I looked and looked for some patterns to put on knitting fantasies. I felt like they should involve the Kitchener stitch since I'm kind of talking about that this week. But I just could not find any that I felt were worthy. Like I looked at a lot of sock patterns. I did not look on Ravelry. And granted, there are a lot of amazing patterns on Ravelry. I looked on Etsy and I did a Google search and I just could not find anything that I wanted to highlight. But I did get a lot of questions about the sweater that I had on last week. So this week's knitting fantasy, I'm only going to do the one, is going to be my own pattern, which I don't normally do. But I have to tell you that this is the sweater that I own, that I wear the most, and that fits the best. I love the fit of this sweater. It is the Inverness sweater. I have two of them. I have one in light gray and one in dark gray. And the reason is because I knit the first one in the dark gray and it was so dark that you couldn't really see the cable pattern. So I knit another one in light gray. The good thing about this yarn that I used is that it is very cheap. If it's still available, it's great yarn. It does pill a little bit, but I don't really care if you don't care. I mean, all yarn's gonna pill a little bit. But it's very affordable yarn, but you could knit it in any fingering weight yarn that you want to. Yeah, and I have heard from other people that it's their favorite sweater because of the way it fits. Basically, the sleeves are slim. You choose a size based primarily on the sleeve circumference that you want and secondarily on the bust circumference because it has a lot of ease built in the middle and it's slimmer on the sleeves. And so you want to focus on your sleeve size. And it says all that in the pattern. But this is the Inverness sweater. I'll see if I can cobble together some pictures of other people's Inverness sweaters to put up here too. Okay, so here's what happened. I have an amazing knitting story from Sarah Nigel. I don't know how to say her last name. It's written on her uniform because she's wearing a uniform for parts of the video. If you know how to say it, great. Sarah, I'm sorry. You're going to have to send me like the phonetic spelling because I have no idea how to say it. But this is a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful story. And I hope you enjoy it. And here it is.
Hi, Devin. Hi, all of my fellow Knitty McPurly podcast watchers. I am Sarah. I am known as SarahJean77 on Instagram. I am fairly new to watching this podcast. I only found it last fall. I was sick with COVID. I had just moved from South Dakota to Tennessee last summer, and all that downtime when I was sick was making me feel especially homesick and missing my friends and family. And so finding this podcast was kind of like finding new friends. You know, this is definitely a community that I connect with, and so I appreciate you all. One of my favorite parts of the podcast, though, is the So Here's What Happened segment. I just love hearing all of your stories. I find all of them fascinating. If you have a story to tell that is about knitting and it's about people and relationships and connections, it doesn't get any better than that, in my opinion. But I also realized that in order for that segment to happen, we all need to contribute and to participate in some way, and that includes me. So here I am. I have really been struggling to figure out what story would I tell. I don't feel like I have one that's very exciting. Yeah, I learned to knit from YouTube 13 or 14 years ago, and it's been pretty uneventful since then. I just knit a lot. So I've really had to spend some time thinking about it. I had all day today while I traveled to Puerto Rico for work, which is ironic considering the story I'm about to tell you. And I hope that you find some of it interesting and enjoy hearing other people's stories the way I enjoy hearing all of yours. So here's a story about me and my knitting in pictures. I started knitting in 2008 when I was neck deep in being a homeschool mom. My husband was a full-time National Guard military member. So for those of you who aren't familiar, yes, he was National Guard, which most people think of as part-time, but he was an AGR service member, which means he was active duty. It was his full-time job. He deployed 3 times during his career, but in between those deployments, he was traveling all over the world for schools and exercises and different events. He went to Italy, Germany, Suriname, Nicaragua, the UK, Korea, Iceland, and many others. I was feeling a little jealous of all of his gallivanting, so one day he said to me, you could join the Guard too, and then you would have all of these experiences. So in 2011, that's what I did. I left my 3 kiddos and my hubby at home for 6 months while I went to my initial entry training. I missed my family terribly, but right up there with missing them, I really missed my yarn and my knitting. I was 34. I turned 34 while I was at basic training, which is already ancient compared to the kids that are there. So here was this old lady joining the military, and on top of that, I just missed my family and wanted to knit. Plus that coping mechanism that I would have normally relied on in a stressful situation was unavailable to me at that time, which was probably when I needed it the most. And I am being a bit dramatic there because basic training wasn't really difficult and it was over pretty quickly. And then I went on to my advanced individual training where I learned my specific job in the military. My first job in the military was as a dental specialist, which is very laid back. It's a very easy school. It's not very military oriented. And my husband liked to tease me that I was in a totally different army than he was. And the best part about AIT was that I was allowed to knit. And so I took full advantage of that and knit as much as I possibly could while still being at my training. Once I got back home and was just a traditional soldier, a weekend warrior in the National Guard, I could have totally gone a drill weekend without knitting. No big deal, just 2 days. But I promise you, I always had knitting with me anyway, just because I'm a knitter. We always have it just in case. So you can see this lump in my cargo pants pocket. Most soldiers keep their hat in that pocket. I did not. I kept yarn and needles in that pocket because you never know when you might have some downtime. I was aware, though, that there are people who are uncomfortable with that, especially in the military. They're the hardcore types who just don't think soldiers should be knitting. And so, I was hyper aware of that. It didn't stop me always from knitting in uniform, but like in this picture, I had knitting in my hands at that time. But when I knew the picture was being taken, I hid it so that it wouldn't be part of the picture, just because of the grief I know that it caused some folks out there. So it's a little different when you're knitting in uniform. I just was living up to my old lady title. Every now and then, though, people would find it interesting and they'd be like, hey, I'm going to take a picture of you like this one here. Because most people just found it interesting, or, just like when you're out in public knitting, people find that interesting. Back to talking about, my husband tempted me to join the Guard because of all of the adventures I could have. In my 8 years in the Guard, I never left the U.S. once, so that's kind of sad. The most exciting thing I did while I was in the Guard was to be part of the presidential inauguration mission in 2017. And so thousands of National Guard soldiers from all over the country participated in that, and we were all housed, well, not all of us, a good portion of us were housed in FedEx Field outside of D.C., football stadium, where the former Redskins play. And some of those private suite owners in the stadium left their suites unlocked so that National Guard soldiers could use them if they wanted. But the Guard didn't really put that out for everybody. I sort of found it out through back channels. And so I took advantage of some downtime to go introvert and knit in some peace and quiet in the stadium. And on our way back home from that mission, I was knitting in the hangar waiting for our plane and making some people uncomfortable who just thought, what kind of freak show is this? This old lady in uniform is knitting, and they just would stare, obviously not pleased. But my husband, he just smiled. He loves my knitting. He doesn't mind when my weird shows. And so he took a picture of me because it didn't bother him at all. So there aren't very many pictures of me knitting in uniform. All of the ones I shared with you right now are all of the ones I'm aware of, and I did get out of the Guard in 2018, but that's my little story about knitting in uniform. Now I would like to know, are there any other of you out there who have stories about knitting while in uniform or something along those lines? Because I sure would love to hear those as part of this segment. I love hearing all of your stories, no matter what, though, so I appreciate all of you who do contribute, and I encourage those of you who are kind of on the fence thinking maybe you want to just go ahead and share something, because I think we probably do all find it interesting. And I just do want to have a final comment on, even though I never went anywhere fun in the National Guard, I am in Puerto Rico today because of my civilian job as a contractor for the National Guard. So who knows where I'm going to be tomorrow. I'm blessed with this job where I get to travel all over. So it did pay off in the end, in case you were worried. All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much, Sarah. What a beautiful story. I love how she didn't think she had a knitting story, but she totally did. Like, seeing into other people's lives and perspectives is always a knitting story if it involves knitting. I mean, just because it's so different. I don't want to say I've never worn a uniform. I worked at a pizza place in high school and I had a uniform then. But other than that, I've never really worn a uniform. And so it would never occur to me that I couldn't be seen knitting in a uniform. But it makes sense. I get it. I understand it. When you're wearing the uniform, you're representing something. And so you can't just do whatever you want. And I just thought that was great. And I just loved her experience. It was so different from my own. I love that she had her knitting with her in her pocket. Anyway, I just thought it was a great story. I loved it. Thank you so much for joining me, you guys. This was so much fun. The sale is tomorrow at noon. Mark, put an alert on your phone if you want to check that out. And leave me a comment. Let me know if you have a suggested name for the sweater. Let me know when you think I should put the advent calendars on sale. And all comments will go toward that giveaway, which I will choose for next week. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.